You wake up, and before your eyes are even open, your mind has already found something wrong. It might be a sound from the other room, a memory from 5 years ago, a vague feeling that today will go badly, even though nothing has happened yet. You have not spilled your coffee. You have not received a text from a difficult person. You have not even moved your body. And still your nervous system is already bracing for impact. This is not pessimism. Pessimism is a philosophy. This is a reflex. You are someone who does not think negatively because you want to be sad. You think negatively because somewhere deep in the wiring of your brain, you made a silent pact. The pact said this: if I expect the worst first, then the worst cannot surprise me. And for a while that worked. It felt like control. It felt like wisdom. You told yourself you were just being realistic. You told yourself that hope was dangerous because hope led to disappointment. So you became the person in the room who pointed out the risk, the flaw, the hidden catastrophe. But here is the paradox you have begun to feel in your bones but cannot yet name. The very mechanism that was built to protect you has become the prison that isolates you. The voice that promised to keep you safe has instead kept you small. You traded joy for vigilance. You traded spontaneity for prediction. And now you are exhausted not because life has been cruel, but because your own mind has become a doomsayer that never clocks out. You are not broken. You are not simply a negative person. You are a person whose brain learned a terrible strategy for survival and then mastered it so completely that you forgot it was just a strategy. Let me show you what is really happening beneath the surface of that negative voice. To understand the psychology of chronic negative thinking, we have to stop calling it a personality flaw. It is not a flaw. It is a neurological adaptation. And like all adaptations, it was born from a specific environment, usually an environment of unpredictability. Let me introduce you to a concept called affective primacy. This is the brain tendency to evaluate something as good or bad before it even fully processes what that something is. In most people, this happens in milliseconds. In the chronic negative thinker, this process is hijacked by a hyperactive threat detection system. Your brain does not ask, "Is this safe?" It asks, "How could this become dangerous?" And because the brain is a prediction engine, it will find an answer. Always. This is driven by a structure called the default mode network, or DMN. Think of the DMN as your brain background operator. It runs your self-referential thoughts, your memories, your planning, and your storytelling. In people with persistent negative thinking, the DMN is overconnected. It loops. It pulls old failures into present moments. It projects present fears into future disasters. You are not choosing to think negatively. Your DMN is literally wired to default to threat simulations. But let us go deeper. There is a psychological principle called negative potentiation. This means that for a brain conditioned on survival, negative events carry more weight than positive ones. You will remember a criticism for 10 years and forget a compliment in 10 minutes. You will replay an awkward social moment from 2017 while lying awake at 3 a.m. That is not weakness. That is your limbic system doing what it evolved to do. The problem is that your limbic system cannot tell the difference between a lion and a text message. It cannot tell the difference between childhood chaos and a mildly critical boss. So it treats everything as a potential catastrophe. And here is where the metaphor becomes important. Imagine your attention is a spotlight. Most people have a spotlight that rests in neutral. They aim it where they choose. But your spotlight has a gravity problem. It is constantly being pulled toward the floor, toward the crack in the sidewalk, toward the dark corner of the room. You have to consciously fight to point it at something beautiful. And that fight is exhausting. This is why you feel tired after social events. Not because people are draining, but because your brain just ran a 4-hour threat assessment on every sentence, every silence, every glance. That is not introversion. That is hypervigilance dressed up as personality. So let me say this clearly. You are not weak for thinking negatively. You are neurologically conditioned. Your brain learned that scanning for danger kept you alive. The tragedy is that you are no longer in danger. But your brain did not get the memo. Now we arrive at the grief. The invisible grief that no one sees. Because here is what the negative thinking person sacrifices without realizing it. They sacrifice authenticity for prediction. They sacrifice presence for preparation. And most painfully, they sacrifice connection for control. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once wrote that anxiety is the dizziness of freedom, meaning that when we realize we have choices, we become afraid. Chronic negative thinking is the opposite of that dizziness. It is the attempt to eliminate freedom entirely. If you already know the worst outcome, then you do not have to be dizzy. You do not have to be uncertain. But you also do not get to be surprised by joy. And that is the real cost. The negative thinker does not miss happiness because they never let themselves feel it fully. They are too busy waiting for the other shoe to drop. They are at a beautiful dinner, and their mind is rehearsing the fight that might happen tomorrow. They're holding someone they love, and their body is already anticipating the loss. They cannot rest because rest feels like vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like danger. This creates what I call the debt of predicted pain. You pay for suffering before it arrives. You pay interest on disasters that never happen. And when the disaster does not happen, you do not feel relief. You feel tired because your brain does not congratulate you for surviving a non-event. It simply moves on to the next prediction. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject. For the negative thinker, the shadow is not anger or lust. The shadow is hope. Hope feels reckless. Hope feels naive. Hope feels like walking into a room full of smoke and believing there is no fire. So you reject it. You call it delusion. But rejecting hope does not make you strong. It makes you a person who has forgotten how to breathe without bracing. And here is the hardest truth. The chronic negative thinker is often the most sensitive person in a room. You see the cracks because you feel the cracks. You anticipate the abandonment because you have been abandoned. You expect the betrayal because you know what betrayal smells like. Your negativity is not a lack of optimism. It is a museum of old wounds that you have mistaken for wisdom. But wisdom does not make you unable to enjoy a sunset. Trauma does. So, what does this look like in adult life? Let me show you the specific fingerprints of the chronic negative thinker. And as I list them, do not judge yourself. Just witness. 1. You pre-apologize for things that have not gone wrong yet. You send texts that say sorry if this is annoying before asking a simple question. You begin emails with this might be a stupid idea, but you have learned to shrink before you are even seen because you assume rejection is coming. 2. You mistake anxiety for intuition. You feel a knot in your stomach and you call it a gut feeling. But not every knot is a warning. Sometimes a knot is just a habit. You have confused the feeling of fear with the feeling of truth. And this has led you to make decisions that kept you safe, but empty. 3. You cannot receive a compliment without suspicion. When someone says something nice, you scan for the manipulation. You wonder what they want. You assume they must not see the real you, because in your mind the real you is flawed. So a compliment feels like a lie. For you replay conversations for hours after they end. Not to savor them. To find the moment you messed up. To locate the sentence that will later be used against you. You are not processing. You are prosecuting yourself in a court that never adjourns. 5. You struggle to start anything new, because before you begin you have already imagined every failure, every criticism, every way it could fall apart. So you stay still, and you call it being careful. But it is not careful. It is paralysis dressed up as planning. 6. You feel relief when something bad finally happens. This is the darkest symptom and the most revealing. When the predicted disaster arrives, you feel a strange calm. Finally, you were right. The waiting is over. Your brain rewards you for being correct, even if being correct means suffering. Because for your brain, being right is more important than being happy. These are not personality traits. These are survival strategies that have outlived their usefulness. They kept you alive in a chaotic environment. But now that environment exists only inside your head. And you have the power to change that. Not by fighting the negative thoughts, but by understanding what they really are. They are the voice of a younger self who learned that expecting nothing meant never being disappointed. And that younger self deserves compassion, not more criticism. So, where do you go from here? Let me be very clear. The goal is not to become a positive thinker. Toxic positivity is just denial with a smile. The goal is not to replace negative thoughts with affirmations that feel like lies. That will not work, and you will only feel worse when it fails. The goal is to become a neutral witness to your own mind. This is the practice of metacognition. Thinking about your thinking. When the negative voice says this will fail, you do not argue. You do not agree. You simply say, there is the voice of prediction again. Thank you for trying to protect me, but I am not in danger right now. This is called cognitive diffusion, a term from acceptance and commitment therapy. It means separating yourself from your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who hears your thoughts. And that distinction changes everything. Begin with your body, because your body does not lie. When you feel the spiral starting, place your hand on your chest. Feel your heartbeat. Breathe. Count 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear. This is not a distraction. This is a signal to your nervous system that the lion is not in the room. Then begin to practice glimmer seeking. A glimmer is the opposite of a trigger. It is a small moment of safety. The warmth of a mug. The sound of rain. The way light falls on a wall. You do not have to feel joy. You just have to notice. And over time you retrain your spotlight, not to ignore the cracks, but to also see the light. And finally, you must do the hardest thing. You must allow yourself to be wrong about the future. You must take a small risk. Send the message without the pre-apology. Start the project without predicting its death. Accept the compliment without scanning for the knife. And when nothing bad happens, do not analyze it. Just let it be. Let your brain slowly learn that safety exists. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche wrote that he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. For the chronic negative thinker, the opposite is also true. When you believe that the how will always be painful, you stop looking for a why. But you deserve a why. You deserve to want things without rehearsing their destruction. You are not your negativity. You are a person who learned a strategy for surviving a world that felt unsafe. And that strategy worked. It kept you alive. But you are not just trying to survive anymore. You are trying to live. And living requires a different kind of courage. The courage to be uncertain. The courage to be disappointed. The courage to hope even when hope feels foolish. So here is my closing truth for you. The goal is not to fix yourself, because you are not broken. The goal is to become whole. To integrate the voice of the doomsayer, not as your identity, but as one small part of a much larger self. To hold your negative thoughts with compassion rather than fear. To stop asking what is the worst that could happen and start asking what else might also be true. You have spent years preparing for the storm. What if you finally let yourself sit in the sun? If this video resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear that they are not alone in this exhaustion. And subscribe if you want to continue unlearning the strategies that no longer serve you. You are not too negative. You are just still using an old map for a new country. and it is time to draw a new one.